Okay, yeah, it's old man rant time. I want to find out from you guys if you're as disgusted, I think you are, as I am with the current state of national politics. And I know we have a significant international crew here, although it's 5:42 p.m. Where I am, Eastern Time, New York. So I know a lot of our European crew might be in bed for the evening. But anybody that is around, especially if you are, and if you are from a different country, I'm curious. Is this something that? Well, I'm going to ask the question, and then I was going to answer it myself. It seems like it's the case worldwide. It just everybody has got politicians that. What bothers me, I think, more than just their base ineffectiveness is their divisiveness. We have three things right now, to me, that are the absolute root cause of why there is so much disharmony and discord in the country and so much vitriol. And it's politicians, media, and social media. Because in all three of those arenas, and those are three arenas that have a lot of reach, it's to individuals' benefits to foment this harmony, whether it be over policy or whether it be over race or religion or sexuality or whatever it might be. It's to their advantage for media, for what passes as journalism now. It creates clicks. If you can write a good story, or no, I shouldn't say a good story, if you can create a good headline about why the other team sucks, that'll get you a bunch of clicks. And that's all that really matters. And with politicians, it's about making sure that you've got your core group backing you and supporting you and going out of your way to make sure that they understand once again that you're leading the team. And that's the other side. And we don't like the other side. And we're going to take every opportunity we can to rip them down. There's no longer even anything of a pretense of, for lack of a better term, reaching across the aisle. Or just saying, I can use myself as an example. I'm right leaning. And given that, and I'm very socially conservative. However, I do see elements of things that the left wants to bring into play as far as services, things of that nature, social services, things along those lines. And I do see where there's certainly room to work together on it. I mean, everything doesn't have to be a my way or the highway, but that's how our politicians want it. That's what makes money for social media slime balls. I've told you guys before, let's go with Twitter because Twitter is the most political of the social media outlets, I believe. Anybody who is on Twitter and has a large following simply from being on Twitter, I got to choose my words carefully so I can say on YouTube, is not someone of good repute. Is not someone that you should probably be following because there's only one way they get this large following, and it's by making posts that are inflammatory. I can tell you why the other side is bad, and then they read a post that says that, and they've got to one up it. No, this is even worse. I can tell you why everybody who doesn't believe the same way that I do, I can tell you why they're garbage. I hate those people. I really do. I despise them. And politicians have jumped right on it. The media is crap. The media is garbage. The national media, national journalists. I mean, you can still find quality journalism on a local level. Hell, you can still find decent politicians on a local level. But to get to the top or to get to the big audiences in either one of those venues, you have to play the game. You have to play the us versus them game. I want to see what some of you guys are saying. Lick says, I don't think which side you play for matters here. Our politicians are bastards, and we're not going to get anywhere until everyone realizes that. Lex, for all my life, I would never have agreed with that statement until the last few years. Yes, and I agree with you. I'm not claiming one side is worse than the other at all. It's everybody. Everybody knows you gotta hate the other team, and you gotta not only hate them, but you gotta lead that fight into making sure that your team knows that that team is bad. And any national politician, I cannot think of one. Maybe you guys can give me a name. I can't think of a national politician who doesn't follow that creed. Look at any of their social media accounts or anything like that. And as I said, the social media clowns, absolute goofballs, who create a big following based just on their social media crap that they tap out, are even worse yet. Devil Jake says, hasn't been an honest politician since Truman, and that's not even true, just to play on his name because Truman. Got it. Yeah, but I'll tell you, it has gotten worse. I mean, politicians, again, you guys know, they've always had their skeevy side. Excuse me, guys. For a long time, for as long as I've been alive, and then some, you've had to... you aren't going to make it to national prominence without cutting some corners. I just don't believe you can. But I've never seen it as vitriolic as it is right now, as mean-spirited as it is. And there is just, from both sides, an unwillingness to come together at all. Excuse me. And like I say, I use myself as an example, because no matter... when I get right down to it, any topic you bring up, I'm trying to think of one that might be the exception. Any belief I have, first of all, I'm always willing to listen to what the other side has to say. But any belief I hold, there's room for wiggle room in most all of them. For instance, let's talk about healthcare for all. Single-payer healthcare. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a terrible idea, single-payer healthcare, because I think the government will completely screw it up and everybody will end up with miserable, abysmal healthcare. That said, I'm perfectly willing to admit that our healthcare system needs a lot of work and government has to be involved in that somewhat. But I think there are plenty of ways to open up, let the free market help dictate healthcare and keep those costs down without turning all our money over to the government and letting them waste it. Maximum Ounce says, and the problem is that this crap is spread into everything, 100%. I've said before, but I go to a film school and almost all of my peers are more activists than storytellers. Disgrace to the dream. I agree, and what you're talking about is very similar to how I become so disenchanted. I told you guys my education was in journalism. And journalism has become a cesspool for the exact same reason. Activists. We can pick articles out of any major publication, online source, whatever you want, and if we read through the article, it's immediately, if you had any type of schooling, which I did, in journalistic integrity and the way a news story should be presented, you can immediately see that nobody pays any attention to that anymore. It has to be tailored to fit a narrative. Whether a lot of times what that is, it's not necessarily fake news. It's incomplete news. They'll tell you the side of the story they want you to hear and gloss over or totally ignore the rest of the story. Baldur Aviation says, it's talking to Ashenman. Lamantia says, I truly think the ability for everyone to express an opinion online 24/7 whenever they want created a divide that can't be closed anymore. When before discussing politics is dinner talk, local forums. I agree. And I think too, Lamantia, I think a lot of that conversation is driven by those clowns that I talk about. If you look at any social media site, but again, I specify Twitter because Twitter seems to be the one that specializes in political conversation. But as I've told you guys, any of you who are on Twitter with any regularity, think about the political voices, but only the ones who have a big following that they built solely on Twitter. You know, it's one thing if somebody follows an actor that they like or an athlete that they like, and this actor or athlete becomes political. They have a reason for having their following. If somebody built their entire huge clientele, their huge following, just on that platform, they did it by creating conflict. You know, by being a cheerleader for Team A and trying to get Team B at every opportunity. And look at the, I mean, in America here, look at the choice we have for president. That I don't think anything could make more clear the desperate situation we're in when you look at the two presidential candidates. Mulder says, I would consider myself left-leaning, but I hate categorizing issues on a left-right spectrum. You should support what you think is right. Doesn't mean you have to agree, of course. And that's an interesting take, Mulder. I've seen that. I'm glad you brought that up. I have never certainly seen any politician ever in my life that if I went to learn a lot about this politician and their take on everything, I have never seen one person that I would agree with right down the line. Obviously, everybody's different. You're going to have shades of gray within your beliefs. And yet, you've got people, and a lot of them, out there on social media who will tell you, I'm with Team A and everything Team A stands for. And we never speak against Team A, because if we do, that's like giving Team B a shot in the arm. I will say this. I know Trump has his hardcore base, no doubt about it. But I think the majority of people like me who are going to vote for Trump don't want Trump there. I think that's a bigger part of the people that are going to vote for him would rather have someone else. I believe, the majority of people who are going to vote for Biden would prefer someone else. But I think in both cases, most of these people are afraid to express that because they'll be ostracized by their own side. Because if you say, well, I got to hold my nose and vote for Biden, well, you're giving votes to Trump. Don't tell people that, and vice versa. I got to hold my nose and vote for Trump. Shh, don't say that out loud. You'll get people over there voting for Biden. It's all team. It's all about teams. Ashman says, yeah, I personally left on social issues, but economically I'm more pro-market, so don't know where is my team. Yeah, and Ashman, that's pretty much different alignments, but same outcome. Because again, if you were to take the big hot button topics of the day and go down the list, as to where I stand, you'd see me going back and forth all the time. I definitely lean right now because anything from my political perspectives now, my views are on behalf of what I think is best for my kids and grandkids. Again, I'm 62. Not much of anything that gets done on a political level right now is going to have that much effect on the rest of my life. It really isn't. It's looking forward to, again, my kids and grandkids. And the reason I lean right and away from the left is simply what I had said earlier. I'm too afraid of the extreme left and the concept of putting more and more of our money into the hands of the government to allow them to redistribute it back. I think that is a recipe for absolute disaster. Jordan says, if there was a carbon copy of Trump, I would vote for that person in a heartbeat. Well, yeah, see, again, when I say I'm voting for Trump, it's entirely on policy. I told you guys before, way before as a politician, I never liked Donald Trump. Being somebody from New York, of course, we have been hearing about him everyone has, but specifically within New York, been hearing about him for decades. And I've never liked him. Always thought he was an arrogant narcissist. But, unfortunately, for whatever reason, he's got this hardcore base that makes it impossible for anybody on the Republican side to make a real go with it. You can't beat them. We saw that. You're not going to beat them in a primary. And a lot of that is due to just what we talked about at the top. Teams. Trump is really good at rallying the team. This is why that side is bad. And now, to be fair, both sides are doing it. When you look at the presidential Twitter feed, it's more shots at Trump than it is touting their own accomplishments. That's just become the nature of the beast. First Wave Negativity says, I think it's the tragedy of commons. Congress is unpopular, but almost all politicians are popular in their own county state. You don't need widespread popularity if your base likes you. Yeah, I think that's true. I wouldn't say almost all. I think even on a more localized level negativity, I think there's still a lot of people that have to hold their nose with the candidates that they're presented with. But I do agree with you. In principle, yes, I think that's basically true. Certainly, I think within their own electorate, yes, they're much more popular than is the presidential nominee from whichever party they're in. Austin says, well, also your own team turns against you if you don't agree with everything in their echo chamber, right? Even if you disagree gently and respectfully, at least dealing with the Twitter. Yeah, 100%, Austin. That's right. You're 100% right. That's why I don't even bother with it. I rarely engage anybody. I'll read feeds and stuff like that, but I rarely engage because it's futile. It's an exercise in futility because they're just going to go on unhinged rants anyway, especially no matter which side you're on. If you have facts, if we're not talking opinion, and if you have facts that counter their narrative, it's just going to go off the rails because nobody on Twitter actually says, oh, boy, you know what? I didn't, whatever that was. I didn't know fact XYZ. Now, okay, so maybe you're right on that. Let's move on to this. It's not going to be what's said. They're just going to let the wheels spin off. Henry says, what do you think is going to happen first? Trump dying of a heart attack from all the fast food, or Biden dying from tripping over a cat and breaking every bone in his body? That's another scary thing, too. I mean, we've got this election. Excuse me, guys. I'm certainly not the first one to make note of this, but these are two old freaking guys. So we got to pay real close attention to that vice presidential spot, because no matter who wins, that could be our future president. And living Trump's lifestyle, absolutely. You got to figure he's a prime candidate to have some sort of cardiac issue or some sort of health issue. And just looking at Biden, no one will ever convince me that he's not on the decline. So that's our choices. Yay! Kyle says, nah, Biden's going to stomp on a Lego. Hank the Tank says, yeah, Republicans are just as bad on Israel and Ukraine. I'm not sure what you mean on as bad as. Evgeny says, the most important thing for many politicians is next election. True. For journalists, it's clicks. True. Both try to get quick attention with radical statements. Right. Couldn't agree more, Evgeny. And that's it 100%. For journalists, or what passes as journalists now, there's nothing more important than the clicks, 100%. And because of the nature of everything right now, to a politician, there's nothing more important than being the strong representative of your team and making sure you're very pointed with your arrows at the other team. That's what's important, because that'll get you some support. Nothing gets either base riled up like their representative getting a really good gotcha on the other side, whether it's based in fact or not. It could be just something they pulled out of their ass, but people are okay with it because it feeds their narrative. Maximum Mouse says, let's be positive a second. At least we don't have to deal with another Trump versus Biden election after this year. That's true. That much is true. The thing is, what happens on election day or the day after election day this time, no matter who wins? How just how testy do you think things will get? Especially if it is, and it certainly looks like it's going to be, a very close election. You know if it's close at all, guaranteed 100% that Trump's base, no matter what facts are out there, they will be convinced that there was cheating and it was stolen. And similarly, if Trump wins, that hardcore far left group is going to come unhinged. Absolutely unhinged. So we're going to be facing something in November. Lamantia says, love the geriatric representation in politics of those who will never give up their position, so they may fall asleep, trip, and have odd pauses for minutes. I mean, and look at Congress. Dianne Feinstein, before she passed, I mean, that was horrible. What they were doing to her. Why? She's passed. We'll let it go. But that was horrifying to see. Gimster says, at least you guys don't got to deal with Canada's homo-looking leader that's willing to sell everything we got. I don't know, Gimster. I don't know if this, if I, where I read this, excuse me, and how true it is, because you can't trust anything you read for sure. But I was saying the other day, I read that Trudeau's polling numbers are horrible. His favorability numbers, I mean, substantially worse than Biden's and Trump's. If that's true, there doesn't seem to be any path for him to hold the seat of power going forward, is there? Alex says, yeah, but then we have to deal with the next pair of dumbasses who will take their place and probably be just as bad, if not worse. It's sad, Lex. It really is sad that just seems to be the case, too. Yeah, you're not wrong. It falls into the sad but true category. There's just nothing. Maximum Mount says, do you think secession is possible? I don't think so. Legitimate question. I think another 4 years of Biden would be devastating for the economy, just the last 4 have been. That could be a big factor. Oh, it's going to be, economy is going to be a huge factor in the election, I think, Ounce. Secession, no matter who wins, that's going to be certainly bandied about, discussed at great lengths, at least on social media. You know it is. Again, no matter who wins. Do I think it's possible? Probably not. There are so many mechanisms that would have to be put into place. And the thing is, if we had decent and good politicians, no matter who wins, both sides would be, after the election, would be coming together to say, okay, whoever won, if I'm B and A won, they won, we've got to just deal with it and make this work. But they won't. They won't. They will both continue to inflame. As soon as that election is over, the losers will go hardcore after the winners and try and explain why that win wasn't legit. There's no doubt in my mind, especially with as close as this election is likely going to be. So we're just going to be in the same cycle for the foreseeable future. Negativity says the far left, interestingly, hates Biden. He's not. No, that's true, especially over the whole Israel-Gaza conflict. He's not done as good a job as Trump as captivating the more hardcore parts of the Democratic base. His voting base is liberal wine moms in the suburbs. I agree with that, yes. Yeah, the far left is very much at odds with Biden right now. It's funny, they're opposites. You're right. Biden absolutely has all of your typical, doesn't even have to be moderate, but you're moderate to slightly extra left in his pocket. But the extreme left, no, they have issues with him, and Trump is just the opposite. Trump has the hardcore right solid. The hardcore right would never abandon him. I mean, he's got them wrapped up. But the more moderates, when you start getting away from that far, far right, then they start to go, you know what? I just can't see myself voting for this guy. And that's mainly his narcissism, his bombastic nature, and the way he goes about things. Henry says, do you think it's even remotely possible of removing the amendment of a president only being able to serve 2 terms? No, I don't think so. Because you know damn well Trump would love that. Yeah, I'm sure he would. But no. I know I can't tell you the specifics, but don't you have to have, for an amendment of that nature, I believe you have to have a large plurality of Congress and all the states, if I'm not mistaken? And no, I don't think that would ever happen. Suck me dong, says Emperor Trump dynasty inbound. Democracy is cringe. I don't know. It's going to be close, you guys. It's going to be really, really close. Especially looking again. I've told you guys before. I'm a stat nut. I like stats and facts and figures and all that stuff. And when you look at the polls, and not just the Trump versus Biden polls, those are all fine and good, but it's the swing state polls you got to worry about. The majority of states, we know which way they're going to go. It's those swing states that are going to make a difference. Pennsylvania, I think, is just too close to call. I do think Trump takes back Georgia. He's looking strong in Nevada and Arizona. I'm surprised Minnesota's polling as close as it is. It's not considered a swing state, but the last several polls I've seen coming out of Minnesota have Biden up by like 2 within the margin of error, which that shocked me. So I don't know. It's going to be so cool. And what is this? This is April, so we got 7 months to go. A little under 7 months to go. So many things. Hell, things change. People's opinions sway wildly from day to day, let alone within 6.5 months. Heroic Nyko says they made the presidency pay to play. That's true. It costs $90 million at least to run for president, which locks out 90+% of the United States citizens. You're right. You're 100% right. And you know what's ironic about that, Heroic, is we are in a place now in society where that wouldn't have to be the case, because you have social media where you can, even a common man could potentially get his word out to millions, but it's not enough. Excuse me. As you say, if you don't have those big money backers, you're not going anywhere. And let's be honest. Say there was some candidate that's just basically a regular Joe from average town America, and he has some ideas that go viral, and it starts to snowball. And it's like, holy crap, this absolute nobody from Butternut Squash, Iowa, is actually getting some momentum. When you add him into the polls, he's a contender. Do you really think that person would be allowed to make it to the election? I'm not saying he'd get offed. I'm saying those in power would find something to take care of him or her. They would find a way to get rid of that threat. Lick says, well, the hardcore right, I don't think, developed both halves of their brains. So when they were in their mother's aunt's womb. So, yeah, but I mean, in fairness, Lickson, that's what the hardcore right thinks about the hardcore left. So, I mean, that's why we are where we are. That's just how everybody sees one another. Sleaze says, maybe I'm biased because I'm left-leaning, but I think that the Republican Party is a little dependent on Trump these days. I can't think of any other Republicans that are as strong of a candidate. Oh, they're way too dependent on him. But unfortunately, I know for a fact there's a lot of Republicans that want nothing to do with Trump. But that hardcore base he's got has enough numbers that just having that base, he's got that, whatever it is, of Republicans, 20% even say, of Republicans, 25%, that will never abandon him. And when you have a hardcore group as your base like that, there's no beating him. That's what we saw in the primaries. There's no way to do it. He's just got too many votes in his pocket before anything begins. And then what happens is, then you get that domino effect. Other politicians that can be affected by Trump in the Republican Party don't want to get on his bad side because of that group. So now you have somebody who, and this is the thing, it can be somebody who has the same belief structure as Trump when it comes to platitudes. But even if they object to the way he goes about doing things, that's all it takes to turn that pack of ravenous wolves against them, and then they're out of luck. Because now they're a Republican, and you got 20-25% of that Republican base who has X'd you out of it because you went against their boy. Excuse me. That's unfortunate. Stuck Me Down says Trump is the party right now. Yeah, for just the reasons I outlined. Because he's got that significant base, there's nothing can be done. Sad but true. There's just no way to get over on him. Maximum Amount says, I'm a Republican and I hate him. That said, there isn't any other member of the party that can stand against him, so we are essentially forced to vote for him if we want anything that aligns with us. 100%. That's where a lot of Republicans are. I mean, it's not reasonable to expect people who have this certain set of beliefs that align more closely with the Republicans to be willing to go vote for Joe Biden, who doesn't align with their belief system at all, because Trump is a pompous douchebag. And that's where his strength is. He's basically got the moderate Republicans over a barrel. Austin says, yeah, economy is bad everywhere. Yeah, at least not to extend EU with its 1% of GDP growth this year. I know worldwide, and I get this from you guys, this is what I love about doing this, is we have a worldwide crew here, and I can get stuff firsthand from you guys instead of filtered through the horrible system of journalism that we have. Hey, T-Man, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it. T-Man says, there we go. I'm sick and tired of all this divisive crap. When will we as Americans be able to put divisive partisan politics aside and come together as Americans and work together to make our country the best? It just seems like an impossible dream now, doesn't it, T-Man? And that's I from my own perspective, that's why I always use healthcare as my example of that. It's like possibly the top issue for me. I am dead set against the idea of single-payer healthcare because I am convinced it will be a nightmare and it will ruin the healthcare system and the finances for my kids and grandkids. Now, again, that said, when I see, and it's so rare you get to do it, when I see somebody who's a proponent of it, it would be so nice to engage them in conversation and say, okay, here's why I think it won't work. Why do you think it will work? What do I have wrong? And you go back and forth, and I can see a lot of elements of that are good. I mean, you're always going to need government involved in healthcare to some degree because you have people who are disabled or just down on their luck. People that have lost jobs, have been hurt, ill, whatever the case may be. There's always going to be elderly people, that are going to need some help. And I know I don't have a problem ever paying any amount of taxes towards that. I do have a problem with just turning over all my money to the government and saying, okay, you provide health care for us because, doggone it, you're so good with money. And government, you're so good at taking care of large projects and doing it in an efficient and economical manner that I want to give you my money. Nope. But I'm perfectly willing to listen to what the other side says and say, well, if we take bits and pieces from one another, you could come up with a really good system. But that's not in the interest of politicians now. Just been streaming. How long have I been streaming? About 35 minutes. Yeah, Maximum Mouse says that will never happen. That's sad but true category. You can't even, generally speaking, outside of here, one of the things I love about our chats here is we can talk about anything and it never goes off the rails. Every once in a while we'll get a wingnut come through who's, my team, you all suck because you don't like my team type person to come in, and we just bounce them. But here you can come in and we can have a conversation and everybody can stay on point and on topic and be decent about it. But once you leave the confines of these chats, there's no place. Gimster says, yeah, he's willing to sell. Well, he's talking about Trudeau. Gimster is from Canada. He is willing to sell what we got, and the only guy that was willing to go toe-to-toe against our looking leader decided to step down due to reasons, though I never found out why. Really? Well, like I say, and I fully admit I'm not well-versed on Canadian politics, but I do know, being a numbers geek, I do know that Trudeau's numbers are just absolutely abysmal. I mean, horrible. As bad as Biden's are, and Trump's are just about the same as his right now, I believe. As bad as Biden's are, Trudeau's are much worse. And I don't see how you hold on to power when you have approval ratings that are in the 20s. But it's an entirely different system up there. So I don't know. Maybe there's more to this than I know about. Oh, I don't. I haven't had an anime influence my political philosophical view. I had my political philosophical views, or how I go about creating those views, well in place long before I ever watched an anime. Corpulent Puppy says, unfortunately, things have gotten so divisive now that I know multiple people who are seriously discussing and promoting a civil war on both sides. Yeah, me too. Americans think we're more different than we actually are. 100%. And then you have, too, on top of it now, when you get out on social media, you have the race baiters, too. And that's on every side. It's not one side doing it more than the other. That's become a thing now. So now we can divide people. And let's be honest. The vast majority of people, I've lived in a lot of different places in this country, and I've lived a significant number of years, more than I'd even like to count. So I've got to encounter a lot of people. I confidently say the vast majority of people don't care what your heritage is. They don't care what your color is. They don't care what your religion is. People are just going through their lives and trying to get through day by day. And if they can make a friend here or there, that's a good thing. I know I've met very few people in my life who I know would say, oh no, I can't be friends with that person because they believe this or they look like that. But if you took social media, if you took Twitter, and that was your only viewport into American society, you would think we are all in different camps. And you would think we are already at civil war. Why? Because that's how people get engagement. Sad, pathetic losers whose only redemption in life is getting some likes on their post foment that stuff. They make a really inflammatory post going after whatever the other team may be, And then they sit there and masturbate to all those likes coming in. They're the worst, absolute worst of humanity. I heard about this, Ounce. He says there's a movie coming out called Civil War that deals with a modern Civil War. I do want to see that. It was released 20 years ago. If it was released 20 years ago, it would be fine. With how divided things are now, releasing that film is dumb. Yeah, I'm torn there just because I don't think we ever should put a cap on creativity or push creativity aside. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. But you have to figure the other side could be true too. If it paints a bleak enough picture, maybe it's something that would help take people down off the edge a little bit too. I mean, it's another way of looking at it. It could be a case of, oh, that's okay. So in Civil War, that's the reality. That's what it looks like. Yeah, I don't want that. That's what we could hope for. Henry says Twitter and cancer is cancer, and I agree. T-Man says, Curtis, I think you're not giving enough credit to our nation's flailing educational system, including these whack job teachers and college professors. They're doing some major damage to our young folks. I think, and again, I'm not going to take a side, I think anytime a teacher tries to indoctrinate instead of just instruct, I think they should be removed from their position. I don't care whose team you're on. I don't care what you're trying to indoctrinate someone into. And I had a major go-round about that when my stepdaughter was in college because she was given a poor grade on a paper, and I knew why. It was because the teacher disagreed with her position. And no matter what my wife said to me about, no, don't do it, don't blah, 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 I couldn't stay quiet. And it was a scene. It was a scene, but it got worked out because it was about capital punishment. And my stepdaughter was pro. And the teacher was vehemently against. And she was graded because of her perspective, not because of the content. Henry says, who would you rather vote for, Curtis? Trump, Biden, or Brian Griffin? I'd rather just go live in a cave. Negativity says that film has nothing useful to say, to be honest. Really? California and Texas are on the same side in that story. You could... How do they come to that conclusion? You could not have two stranger bedfellows. The only way I could see that happening within the confines of the movie, is California is very similar to New York. It's obviously California is very liberal, very left, but it's all concentrated in the cities. All the other outlying area, if you look at like a county by county map of how they vote, is red. Unless they were saying one side overwhelmed the other, and the same thing happened in Texas. Either all the red took over all the blue or vice versa, and then they got together. Because as it stands, that makes no sense at all. Henry says, Curtis, if you were ever in a position in real life where you get into an argument with someone like that teacher, I bet you win everyone because you're witty and full of zingers. Well, this one wasn't even full of zingers. It's just what the teacher did was, and again, it wasn't... Was it a civics class? I don't remember the class, but it wasn't a writing or an English class. And what the teacher did was, since the teacher couldn't make it obvious that they were attacking my daughter just because of the content, so they tried to pick it apart by its grammar. Now, I told you guys, I'm not good at a lot of things. I am a decent writer. I was schooled in journalism. I know how to construct a sentence. I also know in the English language, there are a litany of different ways to write a paragraph, a sentence, a tome, whatever it may be, and have all, even though they're all different, they're all still grammatically correct. There aren't a lot of hard and fast rules within the broader subject of writing. And so basically what the teacher did was nitpicked apart something. They could say, well, whatever, a comma doesn't go here. Well, there's a lot of places where commas are optional, and a comma could go there. So I saw what they were doing. I went down. I had the meeting with the teacher, and I didn't ask first. I asked for the teacher. She was in a class. After the class, I knocked on her door. She said she didn't want to discuss it. I said, okay, let's go to the dean's office and discuss it because I'm not leaving until I talk to somebody. So we sat down and talked about it. She denied that's what had happened, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, then I said, I need to take it higher. I said, whatever the next step is. I said, because this is not happening. You're not doing this. You're not indoctrinating my kid. And you're not dinging her for not believing the same thing you do. And she said, well, and I was serious. I was going to take it elsewhere. And she backed down. She said, if I get, okay, so it's the grade you have an issue with? If I give her a better grade, can we make this go away? Are we done? Like she was going to do me a favor. I said, no, I don't want you to do me a favor. I said, why don't you give her the grade you think she deserves? And if it's that C- or whatever she gave her, stay with it. And let's go ask. If you think she deserves a better grade than that, give it to her. And so she had to grudgingly admit that she thought she deserved a better grade because she didn't want it to go further. Sukamedong says, Texas will be flipped blue eventually because of immigration. I don't know, though. And the only reason I say that is you have to look, a lot of recent immigrants, people that are here legally, are voting red. Florida was really purple for a number of years. It's largely the Cubans that helped to swing that to where Florida is now pretty solid red. Because those Cubans in South Florida want nothing to do with Democrats. As soon as you make any move that can be even slightly construed as leaning towards socialist, the Cubans are like, fuck you, I'm out. So, and if you look at the exit polls recently, a lot of Hispanics have been moving towards the red. So I'm not sure that's going to work for them, the way they want. Now, if you allow illegals to vote, sure they will, because they'll want to get the Democrats in because the Democrats keep looking for ways to grant them citizenship and stuff. But as far as people who are here legally, I don't think so. Right, that's what I mean, Ounce. And those Cubans, because it was South Florida that was turning Florida purple. And basically, I mean, there were other factors as well, but it was largely the Cubans that put a stop to that. Corpulent Puppy says, my senior year of English was focused almost exclusively on CRT and viewing things through a race and gender lens. I hate when Democrats say this isn't happening. It was pure indoctrination. Oh, my daughter faced it in several different classes. None is not typically as extreme as what I outlined with the one professor. Now, when Braxton went to college, not so much, but he went to a college, my daughter went to a college in an urban area, in the Albany, Schenectady, Troy area. He went to a country college in Utica. And, excuse me, they certainly didn't tend to lean conservative, but they also didn't lean liberal. It was actually a very good school. Very good school. He got a great education there. And he didn't see much of that at all. He, like any place else, he said you knew some professors had a lean. He said, but it really didn't play a part in the day-to-day routine in the classroom. Henry says, Curtis, have you noticed that more and more African Americans are supporting Trump this time around? I wonder why that is. Because of Biden's racist past? I don't think so. There seems, polls say it's not as significant as the Hispanic population, but the polls suggest that there is a movement among the black community and people of color in general towards the Republican side. I think it's just my opinion, I think it's more of a case of a lot of people of color saying, to the Democrats, we've been supporting you for a long time and you're not doing anything for us. I honestly think that's what it is. And I do think, and the poll suggests this, People of color tend to be very pro-border security. And I think that's a big driving factor. Evgeny says, many people don't want to deal with obnoxious radicals, so they often have their way. True. When successful people make concessions to these clowns, even some normal people radicalize to get this power. 100%. Absolutely. It is unfortunate that so many people feel browbeaten into being unable to speak their own minds. But that's 100% true. I agree with you. Negativity says Cubans are a special case, but it's true. Most people underestimate how good America is at assimilating immigrants. They don't vote that different from the average American, right? Right. Like I say, that this concept that, okay, if a lot of illegals get in, it's going to swing the electorate. If you let them vote as illegals, yes, they will have a say. As long as the voting is kept to American citizens, no. And I saw that firsthand. I told you, I used to live in Roswell, New Mexico. For several years, I worked there. And, excuse me, we had a very big population of illegals in Roswell. We had a whole section of town called Chihuahuita, Little Chihuahua, where the illegals congregated for the most part. And the Mexican people that were here legally hated them. I mean, I saw it firsthand. I worked with them every day. You know, where I believe back then, I don't know if it still is, I believe back then, I think the Mexican population was just a hair more than the white population. And again, to a person, the legal Mexicans did not like the illegals. Sox says, as an outsider looking in, it's just sad to see America being forced between two candidates who shouldn't be running. I agree. I'm not excited at all. At all. Jordan says, yeah, but those illegals were normal and hardworking. Well, I didn't say they were abnormal. And it's just like any other group. Yeah, many of them were hardworking. Some were not. There was a lot of crime in Chihuahuita. There were a lot of people coming across the border that were not too desirable. And then there were a lot of people that worked on, they did a lot of, I know it sounds like a stereotype, but it's true. We saw it all the time. They would work on the, like the yard care, lawn care services and stuff like that. But the fact still remains, they were here illegally, no matter, how you slice it. But were many of them hardworking? Yeah. But like I said, it's the same with any group. You can't pigeonhole them one way or the other. A lot of hardworking ones and a number of ones that were looking here to do anything but work hard, looking for the shortcuts. Negativity says the film specifically tries to be non-controversial as possible, so it creates a universe so alien from ours that no person could possibly interpret it in a way that they'd politically dislike. Well, that would it make more sense to, if you had a vision for that, of what you think a civil war looks like, write that vision. You don't have to try and placate anyone. It's a work of fiction. I mean, you would think, but that's not the way people look at things. Ashenmint says, to be honest, it is so difficult to immigrate legally, but it is not excusing breaking the law. Right. And, how many millions of people have done it over the years? It is difficult. But as a nation, and this is true of nations throughout the world, you need to have a right to know who is coming into your country. It's as simple as that. And there is a process for coming in. So, no, I'm very big on strong, secure borders, and I'm very big on legal immigration. I think we should always have a system in place for legal immigration, of course. But no, I don't think people should be allowed to just come across the border at will. Henry says, Curtis, did you like Ross Perot back in the day? He had some ideas that were okay. He was just a little too wacky for me. And as far as, certainly from a financial aspect, Ross Perot was pretty sharp. He had that squeaky voice. I can't do his voice, but you know the voice. And some of his takes on things would strike me as a little bit like, what? But he was a smart guy. I never voted for him. But he was, I don't think he was a bad guy at all. Excuse me. Ashenmint says, as a person who wanted and still thinking about immigrating, to get green card is so difficult. Well, and now my take on that too is, if you completely control the border and you don't have any people coming across illegally, you would think, now I can't guarantee this to be the case, you would think it should make the process for coming here legally easier, because you don't have as many people in the country that we don't know who they are. The sheer number of people we have coming in the country illegally right now is insane. And that's got to have an effect on legal immigration as well. It has to. Because it's just a numbers thing. How many people can our economy support type thing. T-Man says, I don't like how some people say that people who are against illegals are against immigrants. We're not against immigrants. We're against illegal immigration in this country. Right. But that goes back to the whole team thing, T-Man. You have to make everything an extreme. Excuse me, so you can take a swing at the other side. That's all it is. Stupidity. Excuse me. Brax just sent me something. I just want to. They're at a concert. Him and his fiance are at a concert. He just showed me, because I've never been to this arena. I hope they have a good time. Christy says, I'm helping collect signatures to get Robert Kennedy Jr. on the ballot here in South Carolina. And I got a lot of black voters signing the petition. Robert Kennedy Jr.'s for a quote-unquote outsider candidate. I mean, not from one of the two major parties, or not one of the two major parties representative, is doing quite well. If things continue the way they are, I think he's got a chance to grab the most of an independent candidate ever. Excuse me, if, as you said, he can get on enough of the ballots. Because you can't count on people for write-ins. It's just an extra step. Conversationosaurus Rex says, most illegals are here on overstayed visas. An issue from what I gather is that it's too easy to get a work visa, but too difficult to become a U.S. citizen. Well, whether it's most or not is a point of contention. Conversationosaurus Rex, most people that we can track, that they have some significant numbers on, are here on overstayed visas. I think actually there are more people that just came across the border and were never accounted for. If you add them into the people who came into the country illegally, I think you would see that number outweighs those who overstayed visas significantly. But that's neither here nor there. But what you're talking about isn't unusual too, though. If you think about it, Poland, Japan, Europe here and there, a lot of countries, it's difficult to become a citizen. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a set of parameters that you would like to see put in place for those who want to become part of your community, to become part of your country. I don't see anything wrong with that. And I'm not saying that just on America's behalf. I don't see that as being wrong if it's Germany, or as I said, or Poland, or Japan, or South Korea, whoever. You certainly should have the right to know who's coming into your country and have your own guidelines for who you would like to see coming in here. T-Man says, Curtis is not a team thing. Criminal traffickers, cartels are exploiting our weak border. Oh, yeah, doing horrific things even to children. This got to stop. We have to secure our border to protect American kids. No, I agree. Oh, and we know that's the case. Yeah, the coyotes are... what happens to these poor people as they're trekking over to here is just insane. And you're right, if there was just some sort of better system. The problem is, for a lot of those people, they know they don't fit the requirements for asylum. And they don't it's not necessarily, they don't have to be in fear for their lives. They just don't like the conditions in the country they're from. and they want a better life, which is perfectly understandable. But it's also understandable for us as Americans to say, well, no, here's the process you go through. And this is how we learn your story, and you get in line with everybody else. Negativity says it's sad how bad the immigration system is. At the same time as there are millions of illegal immigrants, the guy who pretty much created the 5G network in China was denied a green card. I agree. I mean, as we all know, immigrants built the country. And people talk about how, why do I keep saying that annoys me when I do that. People talk about, well, immigrants came, they came in mass numbers back then and they built, right, but I've been to Ellis Island and I've read all the literature they have there. A lot of people were turned away at Ellis Island. The gates weren't just flown open. There was a process you went through when you came into Ellis Island, between medical and interviews and things of that nature, and a lot of people were turned away. Because again, as a country, you have a right to determine who can become a citizen in your country. Hi, Chrome. Unfortunately, we're just over an hour. I'm just getting ready to pack it up. It was an off-the-cuff thing. I just got my editing done, and I had a little bit of time left, and I was like, I'm going to pop up a stream real quick. And politicians had been annoying me, so this became the topic. Yes, they did have periods of no immigration, but what I'm talking about, Chrome, is when they did have immigration, some people like to paint the picture that it just meant everybody could immigrate here, and it never meant that. There was always a process for determining who would be allowed into the country. Sox says, how would you feel about aid programs to Central America to improving the situation there to make them more appealing places so less people wanted to go to the USA? Mixed. We don't have so much money that we can throw it around to the whole world, but that's not the biggest issue. I don't think you can improve someone else's lifestyle if the money will never get to them. And I think in a lot of those Central American countries, you can't go and deliver the money to the individual neighborhood, so I don't think it's ever going to get to them. So I think you'd be throwing a lot of money that would be caught up in graft, greed, and corruption and never get down to the folks it's supposed to help. I don't think there's any way that the U.S. could guarantee that sending this money is going to help improve the quality of life for people there. Yeah, in general. No, you're right. There were periods of no, you're 100% right, Chrome. I just meant we're talking about that, again, some people seem to have the impression that when immigrants came through Ellis Island or whatever, they were just, just taken off the boat and sent into the good old U.S. And that's, there was a whole process. Jordan says, I realize that if you suck it up and vote for Trump, you only have to put up with him for 4 more years. That's it. And the thing of it is, either one of these candidates, and I'm not wishing ill on anybody. I'm just stating facts. What are the odds they make it 4 years? Trump is not a healthy looking guy, and he's getting older. He's almost 80. And Biden, to me, is already showing signs of serious issues. I don't know that either one of them makes it. It certainly, I can't think of a president elected, whether it's Biden or Trump, that I would ever have had more concerns about them getting through the 4 years than those two. All right, guys. Yeah, I do have to go. Thank you for the stream. This was an absolute blast. And again, it was just one of those things that came up because I finished editing quicker than I thought. And I just like hanging out with you guys whenever I get a chance to. So I thought I'd pop one up for you. Now, next time I do this, I'll think of something. We'll talk about something more lighthearted, more fun, since we had a more serious conversation this time. But thanks for the conversation, everybody. This was a lot of fun. Goose, goose, goodbye. Indeed, Gimster. As always, once again, we talked about a hot button topic, and nobody got crazy. Nobody went off the rails. No name calling. That's I'm just always impressed. Always impressed with you guys. Now, before we get done, though, I should, you know what? If I'm a good host, you guys are so well behaved in here and everything, I'm going to give you, before I kill the stream, I'm going to give you 1 minute to just go ahead and call me names now. And it's free and clear. You no repercussions for any of the names you want to call me, because you guys, again, I know I've said things that have pissed some people off during the course of this stream. Go ahead. You have 1 minute, and then I cut the stream, or I start crying, whichever comes first. Okay, Saitama. Oh, I must be a great guy. Nobody's even taking advantage of the free name calling. Hey, Curtis, you're old. Ha! Bet you never heard of that one. Wow, I'm impressed. This is pretty good. Jeff just put a, you sexy bastard. Did I do it right? There's only 20 seconds left. I might have escaped. Take the shirt off and we'll see if it changes. Oh, that's it. I mean, I could almost not blame YouTube if they cut my stream off if I did that. I mean, that's just being gross to people. Negativity says Poopy Head. That's a good one. Poopy Head was one of my favorites when I was a kid. I think Poopy Head, no matter how old you get, how mature you get, is always a quality put down. Hey, Baldy, Mr. Clean called. He misses his grandpa. Oh, I'm almost be Mr. Clean's grandpa. Oh, that one hurts a little. Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries. I didn't say it. Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries. You silly British kniggets. Well, that one's true, T-Man. That one's just, no, that one's 100% true. All right, guys, gotta go. Talk to y'all soon.